Hey friends, welcome back to Midweek Encouragement. We've been talking about who is our neighbor, and we need to understand that our neighbor is that person that's adjacent to us. Actually, it could be the person even standing in front of us. It could be anybody that we meet. A few weeks ago, we talked about that song, Who Are the People in My Neighborhood? It's the people that I meet when I'm walking down the street each day. It's anybody that I come in contact with, whether physically contact them or talking on the phone or writing them a letter. It's the people that are around me. They are my neighbor. And I have a great responsibility when it comes to being a neighbor. Remember what Jesus said? He said, love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. And the second commandment is like it. Love your neighbor as yourself. And I think that we need to understand that we are accepted by God. When we understand that we are accepted as we are, we can begin to say, I am loved, and I can start loving others as I love the Father in heaven. And as I love others, I am loving God in return. We all have those in our lives that we are close to, our spouse, our children, our parents, and they are easy to love because we know them so well. Sometimes they can challenge us in loving them, but to love our neighbor means that we love them on their good days and our good days, and we love them on our less than good days and their less than good days. Being a neighbor calls us to love them at all times. And we can do this by helping lightening their burden. And when we know someone well, we know when things are going well and when they are not. When they are in a time of difficulty or sorrow, we can either be a burden or we can be part of the solution. So often we might say something to them in effect of, if there is anything I can do for you, let me know. Well, I think that we need to stop saying those things because honestly, we are only placing more burden on them when we say that phrase, if there's anything you need, just give me a call. Most often, they're not going to call us because they don't want to be a burden to us. They've got enough burdens of their own. So rather than saying, if you need anything, just let me know, just go do it. If you see that, hey, I could make them a meal, I could go fill their car with gas, I could take their kids off their hands for a little while. There's so many things that you and I can do. It's just a matter of stepping up to the plate and doing them without being asked and without putting any more burden on somebody else. And being a neighbor, think about how many times God has extended grace to you. I was speaking to my brother, my biological brother, not my brother from another mother, the other day, and he said, if you judge a book by its cover, you'll never invite that book to church. I thought that was pretty powerful. And my brother is a welder, so what he says sticks. Okay, pun intended there. And that's my brother. And if you don't like that comment, I can give you his phone number. Yeah, he's a great guy. I wish he would do this video for me today because he's got a lot of wisdom in his head. Everyone we meet needs some grace. God has extended grace to you and me. As we share our faith in word and in action, let's not just settle with winning an argument which we are prepared for and they are not. Let's not rest after leading a half-hearted prayer, repeat after me type prayer with a bow-beaten victim of evangelistic initiatives or win at merely winning an intellectual assent to the truths that we've shared. Let's press in all the way to the people with whom we're talking and allow them to take in our adoration of God the Father. The Bible says in Ephesians chapter 5, this is a great verse, Ephesians 5 verses 1 and 2, be imitators of God, therefore as dearly loved children, and live a life of love, just as Christ loved us and gave himself up for us as a fragrant offering and sacrifice to God. The last part of that verse in the Living Bible paraphrase, it says, he loved us and offered himself as a sacrifice for us, a pleasing aroma to God. When we extend grace to a neighbor, the one adjacent to us, It may be the server at a restaurant, it may be a clerk at a store, or even one holding the door for us. We are showing them Jesus. And Jesus doesn't see us as we are. He sees us as we become, and he desires to see himself in us. So if we will stop judging the books by their cover, we become more interested in their future than in their past. We can affect people, or we can allow them to affect us. And if we allow them to affect us in a negative way, they infect us with their bad attitudes. Being excited that you have the opportunity to represent and share Jesus and affect someone in a positive way today makes all the difference. We can make a difference by loving our neighbor. We've got to stop looking in the mirror and saying, mirror, mirror on the wall, who's the fairest of them all? I'm better than they are. Because being a neighbor means we quit looking in the mirror and comparing ourselves or anyone else to us. In fact, the Bible tells us that it's foolish to compare ourselves with someone else. And we got to keep in mind that their mess could be a message that changes the life of many individuals that they come in contact with. It may be the message that somebody else needs to be able to come to know Jesus as their forever friend. Jesus commanded, love one another as I have loved you, so that you must love one another. By this, all men will know you are my disciples if you love one another. Choosing to extend grace means to forgive those who offend us. Think about that word offend. Offended or offend comes from a word that means the trigger of a trap. When we're offended, we are caught in a trap. And so let's not get offended, but let's release people from the trap. After all, God has forgiven us. He's forgiven us so much. It's unwise to justify our unforgiveness towards others. Through the process of forgiving others, we're going to be set free from harboring bitterness. Extending grace is what Jesus taught us to do. He says, when you have done this to the least of these, my brothers, you've done it unto me. So how we speak to our spouse, how we speak to our children, how do we speak to others reflects how we speak to God the Father. Being a neighbor calls us to build each other up. I think of the words of Philippians 2, 14 and 15, and I think it speaks very straight and very clear to us. It says, do everything, not a few things, but everything without complaining or arguing, so that you may become blameless and pure children of God without fault in a crooked and deprived generation, in which you shine like stars in the universe as you hold out the word of life. When my children were little and we would go into a building that had an elevator, we had a little rule for them that one got to push the button on the outside of the elevator. And when we got in, another one got to push the floor. And then when we were going back to the elevator, the one that pushed the floor got to push the down button and the other one got to push the floor button. So we had to take turns in using the elevator. Each and every one of us, when we meet people, we are going to push an elevator button in their life. We're either going to take them up or we're going to take them down. And I believe that we have a responsibility as believers in Jesus Christ to be taking people up no matter who they are. I was in the lumberyard recently with a family member, and the young man loaded the car, and when he finished, he said, "Thank you, Merry Christmas." I text his boss and I said, man, this kid just made my day by saying thank you and Merry Christmas. You got an awesome employee out here. I got a text back from the boss. I'm not used to getting positive things about employees. I said, you need to call this kid to your office and tell him he did a good job because he's been kicked down so much. Somebody needs to build him up. And I think that's our job as believers in Jesus Christ, to encourage one another and to build each other up. 1 Thessalonians 5:11, it says, therefore be an encouragement to one another. Who are you going to encourage today? Have you ever had to stop and ask for directions as you're going down the road, and the person that gives you directions makes you even more lost than you already were? It's our job to give people the right directions. For the people we know, we can find all sorts of ways to show them love, and it doesn't always require words or money. God has given us 2 ears and 1 mouth, and maybe that's so we will listen more and speak less. When we put others before ourselves, we're acting like Jesus, because there is no greater love than when we set ourselves and our agendas aside and do something for somebody else. Being a neighbor requires us to be present. And one of the greatest things about God is he is known to show up in the most unexpected places. Oftentimes, he wants to show up through us. And it's easy to miss out on the presence of Jesus because our agenda is too full for him. And we have all of our distractions and all of our commitments and all of the people, and we sometimes forget to look at him. And he wants to show up through us in the lives of other people, those adjacent to us. Who are they? Oh, that's our neighbors, aren't they? And the presence of God can't be phony. It can only happen when we practice the presence of Jesus in our own lives, be reminded of his promise that he will never leave us and he will never forsake us. So let me ask you this: where have you experienced his presence today? When you are walking in presence, you will see someone and you won't know what you're going to do to help them. You just know that Jesus is going to use you to help them experience him that day. And when he calls you up, you have to take off your book cover glasses and put on his eyes. You have to set aside your complaints because complaining robs you of creativity. So be ready. He has plans, big plans for you and plans for his kingdom. Can you believe that he uses people like us to expand his kingdom? He believes that you are able for the task that he is putting you to, or otherwise, why would he choose to use you? You're the one he wants to take him to the places that he wants to go so others can get to where they need to go. Hey, thanks for watching today. This is Pastor Kevin Klaus, and may you have a blessed day. Bye-bye.